set to start the 2001 NASCAR season at the Daytona International Speedway.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. Transfer of authority is rare in history, yet common in our country.
Michael Jordan is poised for a comeback.
Duke is celebrating its third men's basketball title.
To be able to create a product like this, it's pretty amazing. iPod.
We affirm old traditions and make new beginnings.
Dale Earnhardt was killed in an accident in the Daytona 500.
Now we must choose if the example of our fathers and mothers will inspire us or condemn us. We must show courage in a time of blessing by confronting problems instead of passing them on.
Plane crashed into the World Trade Center.
I will live and lead by these principles to serve the public interest with courage.
The people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
We know the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. Do you not think an angel rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm?
Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins. Thankful to be the guy that could carry the American flag around after the racing. I'm proud to be American.
God bless you all. God bless America.
Each NASCAR season begins with a pilgrimage. Thousands of fans brought together by the power of a single event.
You go to Daytona in February with the start of the season, and the Daytona 500 is magnetic because it's the biggest event that NASCAR will do all year long.
Dale Earnhardt will start from 7th position today, and if there is such a thing as an always favorite when you come to a racetrack, Earnhardt is it.
He was an icon. He was the Elvis of the garage during that period, and a lot of fans looked at him as the hero figure.
He had set me and Michael down and said, man, one of us can win this race. You know, we can work together. And so when he came up to me at the car right before we got in, he was sort of saying, hey, remember the conversation we had? Let's do that. We can all have a great day.
As drivers strapped into their cars, most did so without a head and neck restraint system. But in light of racing's inherent dangers, innovations such as the Hans device were slowly catching on.
In 2000, we had some unfortunate incidents between losing Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin, and then later in the year in the truck race, Tony Roper. So going into 2001, there was a good deal of effort being put in to make the sport safer for drivers.
I had some of the biggest names in the sport make comments to me or about me that I was scared, that I was a pansy, that I was not a man because I cared. I didn't give a damn. Bottom line was I wanted to be safer.
Dale Earnhardt was always parked right across from me in the motorhome lot, and the conversation came up about me wearing the Hans device. His question as he looked at me was, are you wearing it because you're afraid of dying? And I looked back and said, no, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm wearing it because I think that it gives me a better chance, and it's what I look at as the next new safety device and an opportunity that we have as drivers. And certainly I had no idea what that question and how it would come back.
Pace vehicle is in. The 43rd annual Daytona 500, the green flag road racing.
We've got a couple of corporate teammates, Waltrip and Earnhardt Jr. Then the man who owns those cars, Dale Earnhardt.
This crowd is on their feet. They want to see the finish of the Daytona 500. They'll look at the white flag.
I was probably being a little more conservative with my calls to Junior, just trying to keep him in line to the last minute. My thought was that Dale was going to try to shove Junior past Michael for the win. That's what I saw coming. The problem was when we got off turn 2, they all jumped Dale.
So far, 3 wide behind, halfway down the back straightaway.
Michael Waltrip showing the muscle. Everything stacks up from third on back. Dale Earnhardt gets turned sideways. Earnhardt and Schrader are in the wall. Waltrip leads off 4.
Coming down to the finish, though, and Michael Waltrip is going to win the Daytona 500, the biggest of them all.
What I saw when I drove by the accident, it looked like a normal Daytona crash.
I immediately went to Danny Culler, who was Dale Sr.'s spotter. And I'm like, is he okay? What'd he say? He's like, I don't know, he hasn't said anything yet. He said Richard's calling him too, and he just hasn't answered.
You okay? You okay?
Sitting directly in front of me, the Ken Schrader car and the Dale Earnhardt car. Schrader now very quickly calling over for the medical crews to come to attend and check on Dale Earnhardt.
It wasn't long at all that we see Dale Jr. running to the infield care center. And typically over the years when you see people running to the infield care center, it's not a good thing.
Well, in hot pursuit of Dale Earnhardt Jr., they don't know anything yet about your father. Tell us about those last few laps.
Well, I was trying to stay behind Michael and see what happened at the end. But they had a big wreck back there, so they didn't have really no help. So Michael won his first race. I'm glad DEI finishes 1 and 2 today. Pretty cool.
That's Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's going to the care center. He's trying to check on his father. He comes home second. Dale Earnhardt Sr. has been transported to the Halifax hospital, but no word on his condition one way or the other.
It was quiet. In the garage, people were gathering in little groups and talking quietly among themselves as if some of them knew how bad it was or had a really good idea that this is not going to end well.
I left Victory Lane and I walked into the NASCAR hauler, and it was Brian France, Mike Helton, and the phone rang, and Brian picks it up, and he talks to him for a second, and he hangs up, and he just looks at me and he says, "It's the worst."
This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements that I've ever personally had to make. But after the accident in turn 4 at the end of the Daytona 500, we've lost Dale Earnhardt. NASCAR has lost its greatest driver ever. And I personally have lost a great friend. And I think that pretty well sums it up for the NASCAR community right now.
Felt bad for all the fans that were upset, and you seeing people crying and carrying on, and you felt terrible for the shock that it must have been for these people to lose their hero. It's a damn shame that he's gone because he had so much more to give. But we got to fend for ourselves and do for ourselves without him.
We begin tonight with the shock and sadness at the death of NASCAR superstar Dale Earnhardt in Daytona yesterday.
Grieving fans gathered at Earnhardt's racing headquarters in North Carolina to pay tribute to the man many call the greatest stock car driver of all time.
When mainstream media was covering the death of my dad and how much attention that got, that stuff kind of blew you away, because I don't even know if Dad had an idea of what he was to the world, or what he was to this country.
The calendar rarely makes concessions for loss and confusion. A week later in Rockingham, there was an obligation to carry on.
I don't think anybody wanted to be at the racetrack the next week, to be honest. I think we all only wanted to be there because we all got to be with each other.
I didn't want to be there. I knew I had to go race, because if I didn't go race, I might not never come back. But I didn't care about the race, didn't care about the race weekend. It was more about, is this company going to survive this? One of the things that this really teaches you the most about is how selfish you are about things like this. I mean, I miss my father, and I've cried for him, but out of my own selfish pity is the reason for those emotions. And that's really all I have to say.
couldn't imagine what, I mean, he was a kid. I can't imagine what he was going through.
It's your boss, it's your mentor, it's your father, it's the name of the company, and you had just been given the responsibility of the Earnhardt name to carry it forward. I don't know how he was supposed to handle it.
This week has seemed like a month. We've all gone through a variety of emotions, trying to reconcile with ourselves just how a hero like Dale Earnhardt could be taken away. Today, life goes on, and so does racing, just like Dale would have wanted it.
And there was a mood and a feel of, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do it or even if I want to do it, but I know I have to do it.
Was he mentally prepared to get in that car? I don't know how anybody could have been mentally prepared to get in the car. During the warm-up laps and coming to the green, how can you not have that in your mind?
Green flag goes in the air, and we are underway in the Duraloop 400 as they race to turn one.
No outside. Come on low, come on. Direct in front of you. Stay low, stay low.
Trouble in turn 4. Dale Earnhardt Jr. head on into the concrete.
From the last lap of last Sunday to the first lap of this.
This cannot be happening to that young man. It looked so similar to Dad's wreck. I was embarrassed by that. I was embarrassed because it looked like it looked.
After the accident, he wanted to go home. He didn't want to fix it, didn't want to mess with it. I don't think he wanted to be there. What raised us all back up, Steve Park came to life.
Here comes Steve Park. Now, this is one of Dale Earnhardt Incorporated's cars. It would be a very, very popular win.
The first time Steve Park went to Rockingham, he was horrible. And Dale sat down with him and went over the racetrack. You got to let off here, you get on the gas here, this is how you preserve your tires. He taught him that. We were leading that race, and Bobby Labonte is coming.
Bobby Labonte full of hustle. Steve Park is full of heart. Looking to pull even into turn 3. Labonte is there. Park on the outside trying to hold him up.
One last effort at him at the start-finish line, but it will be Steve Park.
If that didn't happen, I don't know what would have happened to the company, because him winning was like, wait a minute, you know, this is possible, this is doable.
With Steve Park in victory lane, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated could see a way forward. The future seemed less certain at Richard Childress Racing. Earnhardt had been the team's lead driver since 1984. Black number 3 became the white number 29, and Busch Series driver Kevin Harvick became a Cup Series rookie, an unproven name forced to fill the shoes of a legend.
Kevin Harvick now is a household name, but then he was just a guy in from the West Coast, and all of a sudden he's tossed into one of the best cars on the circuit under this very strange black cloud of history.
At Atlanta, Harvick showed no signs of wilting under the weight of his new position.
Kevin Harvick trying to hold off Jeff Gordon for the win. Coming out of turn number 4. Gordon is down low. Harvick is up high. Side by side out of 4. Harvick trying to hold on. Gordon races to his inside. They touch at the stripe.
Tell me we got him. Oh, we got him!
It's Harvick! Harvick by inches.
As a competitor, I can't help but go through it every time thinking, what could I have done different to have gotten the win? But looking at the bigger picture, I'm glad it was the battle that it was and that impacted the sport in the way it did.
This was for Dale, you know. Right there at the end, I was praying for him to help us, and he did.
This doesn't get your blood to pumping and give you chill bumps and give you some sort of special feeling. You're just not in this world right now.
I don't know how you could script it any different. None of us expected this soon, and I think Dale Earnhardt was in the passenger seat of this car today. Somebody was making it go a lot better than I was, so all I got to say is this one's for Dale.
That might have been the most significant thing that could have happened to Richard Childress Racing, for them to know that going on might be possible.
I'm real happy for Richard, and especially the team, because I know how much my father meant to those guys. And it really makes me feel good to go home tonight knowing that them guys has got something to celebrate.
Dale Earnhardt's car had returned to victory lane. So had the race team that bore his name. But his son remained adrift, still awaiting his own moment of solace.
Heavy fog this morning from Philadelphia up through Boston. That may cause some delays. Now back to New York. Here's Matt.
All right, Willard, thank you very much. On Close Up this morning, a tale about a Tiger Woods, that is, becoming the first in history to win golf's 4 major professional tournaments.
The world of sports carried out its annual spring traditions. The change in season brought with it NASCAR's own all-star event. And with no points at stake, the Winston was a time to cut loose after the turmoil that began the year.
Here we go. The 17th annual running of the Winston gets the green flag.
All the cars are loose down in the corner. The track is wet. All these cars are wrecking because I believe it might be raining.
Everything was fine until we threw the green flag, and it instantly become unfine.
They waved the green flag. The sky opened up.
I made it through there, and you're thinking, man, you know, I got a shot at winning this race now because half these guys have crashed. Well, NASCAR let them all get backup cars out.
It was an all-star race. It was non-points. It was fun. And so we said, okay, you know, we haven't even completed a lap in this thing, and we've got a lot of torn-up race cars. So if you've got a backup car, go get it, and we'll start over.
You go from thinking my race is done to, oh, wait a minute, there's new life here.
Not only did they get their backup cars out, but they really didn't have to go through tech. So all these guys get their cars out, and they tricked them all out.
And we're off and running one more time.
Jeff Gordon trying to become the second 3-time winner of the Winston, joining Dale Earnhardt.
Guys that wrecked ended up winning the race. So I was furious about that whole thing. We shouldn't have rushed into the rain. Then those guys got a mulligan. You don't see that anymore.
As summer arrived, the sport's top talent took its place in victory lane. But looming in the distance was a return to Daytona.
A couple of my best friends and a couple of Dale Jr.'s best friends actually went back to Daytona a week early.
I was a bit of a hellraiser partying, and Daytona had a lot of great bars, a lot of great places to go. The day that we got there was a Thursday of the off week. And we just got into town, and I said, we're gonna go into the racetrack. I gotta go to the track before we can go into town and rent this house and have fun and do what we're gonna do. I can't do that with this racetrack looking over my shoulder. We drove over to turn 4 where Dad crashed and stopped, and I just got out, walked around a little bit, and just needed to stand there. I just wanted to get there and check it out and, you know, make my peace with it or whatever you want to call it. But it was good. And we got in the truck, left, went and raised hell all weekend.
It was maybe his way of dealing with it. We were honestly a little concerned how he was going to come to this race and how, if he was going to be prepared, if he was going to give it. We just didn't want any distractions for him. Well, probably the worst thing that could have happened to him being by himself. Junior did exactly how he wanted to do it, which turned out to be exactly how he probably should have done it.
16 races down, 20 to go. NBC Sports will be here each and every week. These cars are about to roll out for Winston Cup practice.
Going to Daytona in July, all eyes were on Junior. How would he react? And how should we react for him?
There's Dale Earnhardt Jr. getting set to make his first laps here. What must he be thinking right now as he gets set to go out onto the track for the first time?
I guess I remember thinking to myself, it's going to be weird going through turn 3 and 4 a couple times.
The very first time he came off of turn 4, I'm like, that's where Dale died. I remember it so vividly, just that, like, that's right there, that moment. You know, like, I just comes through the corner, like, right there's where he spun. And it did that for like 2 or 3 laps. It's hard not to do that. I mean, it's the last thing you saw from that perspective was Dale Earnhardt crashing and dying.
After a couple times, it was over. I think I was okay.
The way he handled himself, the way he didn't shy away from it. It's here, it's part of it, it's part of who I am, it's part of who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. He became, in a lot of ways, a leader in the garage that day.
Dale Jr. will be a very strong contender Saturday night. That'd be a story.
Can you imagine the ovation that would happen if Earnhardt Jr. won the race Saturday night?
Today, a 21-gun salute to America. From the USS Constitution in Boston Harbor, the hub of the American Revolution, to parades in America's heartland, a great experiment in democracy, cheered and embraced.
As the nation celebrated, NASCAR returned to the site of one of its greatest tragedies.
The emotion of that weekend was palpable.
Where he goes. Dale Earnhardt Jr. will start 13th here tonight. Many in the garage feel he could be the driver to beat.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
Some 180,000 fans are packed into the Daytona International Speedway.
Can Dale Jr. dominate Daytona like dear old Dad used to? He has a fast car, just enough experience, and tonight, most likely, a little help from above.
The crowd is on its feet. The 43rd Pepsi 400 goes green on NBC.
With such emotion, pressure, and expectation, many young men would break, but not Dale Earnhardt Jr. He was spectacular.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. goes for the lead. The fans all jump to their feet. Earnhardt Jr. leads at Daytona.
Check out those fans. They are absolutely loving this.
You could see emotion in the way he was driving. He was getting to the front, he was staying to the front, and you were going to have to do something spectacular to knock him out of the front.
You know, there's no point in any race where you go, man, I got this, or I'm going to win this race. I always think, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to keep me from winning this race?
Runners trouble off the corner. Several cars involved. 3, 4, 5.
Earnhardt avoided the chaos, but the caution came in the middle of a pit cycle and put him in 7th place with only a few laps remaining.
I knew with our tires we were going to eat those guys up. I just needed to make sure that I got all the right runs and never got bottled up where I had to really lift and kill my run.
They come to the start-finish line. Time to settle the Pepsi 400 at Daytona.
Look at Junior go.
There. Up to 4th.
We just sort of hopped right in front of the right people at the right time to get these really awesome pushes.
Junior to the outside of Mayfield for 3rd.
He just really made some really good moves at the right time. Looked a lot like his dad at that time, where his dad was so much better than we were at drafting, manipulating the air and moving people around. And it just seemed like Dale Jr. caught on to that stuff a lot quicker than everybody else did, and especially that night.
To the outside for the lead in turn 4. Dale Earnhardt Jr. rockets to the front at Daytona. Listen to the crowd. The 180,000 on their feet screaming wildly.
Noise of the crowd, this almost religious experience, this seeming miracle that Dale Jr. is going to win this race. It's one of the most stunning things I've ever experienced in sport.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. using lessons learned from his father to go from 6th to 1st and score the victory in the Pepsi 400.
That's unbelievable.
You wouldn't believe the emotion, the tears out here.
He loves this place. Hell, listen to them fans up there. They love that kid to death.
They were so loud. They were frenzied. They were cheering. They were crying. It was crazy.
There's a handful of moments that I constantly think about that were special, unique, and wow, I'm glad I was in this business in this era. That night was one of them.
It opened up all the emotions that had been sort of suppressed for the last, 3, 4, 5 months. We finally get to celebrate, and it's okay. It's okay to be happy.
He was with me tonight. I don't know how I did it, but he was there.
Not that anything could ever really truly take away the sense of loss of the father, but boy, you had a sense of renewal That night, in a way, I don't think anybody ever believed it was really going to happen quite that quickly. But the boy won. The son won.
We just really needed something like that to happen, and it couldn't have been, you know, a better story to go back to Daytona and do it there.
As the fireworks lit up the night, a sense of healing swept through the world of NASCAR. Earnhardt's victory was therapeutic, but in the quest for the championship, the summer belonged to a different driver.
Gordon to block, and Gordon to win.
Jeff Gordon becomes a three-time winner of the Brickyard 400.
By mid-August, Jeff Gordon had racked up 5 wins and 14 top 5s, carrying him to a nearly 200-point lead in the standings.
He just was fast. You wanted to go out there and beat him, but to be honest with you, there wasn't much chance. He had everybody covered that year.
As we won races and built confidence, it just got better and better and better. And we got to the point just past halfway of the season where we felt like this is our year. This is our championship to win or lose.
Summer drew to a close, and after such a difficult start to the season, things were starting to feel normal again. With the focus now on the championship, no one in NASCAR could predict that once again, everything was about to change.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Tuesday morning. I'm Matt Lauer.
And I'm Katie Couric. What's that Dolly Parton song? Here we go again.
Yeah, unbelievable. We've been talking about this for a long time. He retired from the game back in 1999.
On the early morning of 9/11, I was in my office in New York, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, one of the most iconic buildings, certainly in New York, getting ready for an NBA bid.
Perspective on Howard Hughes, because the other books have been written based on stories told by people.
I could see on in the background, and I was kind of mad I was missing it, that Matt Lauer was doing an interview.
The most amazing man that America has ever created, ever.
Okay, I have got to interrupt you right now.
Sorry.
Richard Hack, thank you very much. We appreciate the book is called Hughes. We want to go live right now and show you a picture of the World Trade Center.
And all of a sudden, I noticed on the screen, they were kind of into something much different.
As Matt just mentioned, we have a breaking news story to tell you about. Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City. It happened just a few moments ago.
I was living in Florida at the time, and I just remember that morning in disbelief and like most people, really confused.
I was sitting in my office doing a radio interview, and he said, "Hey, oh wow, an airplane just hit the towers."
I was testing at Kansas Motor Speedway, and I could see across the garage the race car sitting there, and all the guys are standing in the corner glued to this television up in the corner of the garage.
I was at my desk in Daytona and saw the first incident, and like the rest of the world, wasn't sure what was going on, but you knew something significant was happening.
I was in Stewart, Virginia, watching the news feed. I'm talking about the first plane, and here comes the second plane coming in.
Airplane crashed into the World Trade Center. Second plane into the other tower of the Trade Center. Major fire. Everything you got to the World Trade Center now.
We had, in those days, 3 or 4 floors of 30 Rock. And I said, I'll take 2, you take 2. And you just run around the floor and you tell everybody to get out of here.
You have to move from a possible accident to talk about something deliberate.
The first one was, man, can you believe that? Some plane just flew in there. And the second one was, this is totally different.
Every emotion is we're under attack, and you don't know what's next.
And of course, speculation of a terrorist attack is unconfirmed, although that is what some Pentagon...
Katie, I don't want to alarm anybody, but apparently there was an explosion of some kind here at the Pentagon.
Intelligence officials tell me that they do believe at the Pentagon that that was a third plane.
I don't remember what time it was that I actually turned the TV on.
I didn't move. I never took my eyes off the TV all day.
This footage we're seeing right now shows that the damage is so severe.
This is the most serious attack in the United States in more than 100 years.
By mid-morning, our world had changed in a way that it would never be the same again.
We're talking about people who were hurt, perhaps killed in this blast. Many of them have been brought to area hospitals, including St. Vincent's Hospital.
Is this a dream? Is this, what in the hell is going on? It was really kind of similar to that feeling I had when Dad was killed. It's like, what does this mean for all of us? Pretty scary.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world.
Today, it is quiet and nearly empty. And around the country, it's an uneasy start to the day. While everyone is encouraged to return to normal, to get back to their routines, certainly it's slow going.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, I heard from Bill Jr., a phone call, saying that they had heard from the NFL that they definitely weren't going to play that weekend.
We were all still trying to put all of this together. I'll never forget the phone call from Mike Helton.
I had several conversations with different drivers and got different opinions, but I think the consensus was that everybody understood that, hey, you guys make the call and we're with you.
NASCAR has decided to postpone this weekend's Winston Cup race until November 23rd, the day after Thanksgiving.
Sports and entertainment are good complements to a healing process. But there's a time and a place where I think that we landed that you simply have to be aware of the fact that the magnitude of that day certainly was one that deserved peace and quiet.
Good morning and welcome to Today on a Tuesday morning. I'm Matt Lauer.
And I'm Katie Couric. You know, it's hard to remember what it was like just a week ago this morning, and still, life somehow goes on.
As this country did go back to work, to school, and to play, it was, as someone said, not business as usual, but business as unusual. There is a new reality.
Professional baseball returns, but like everything else in America, it won't be the same.
You got a sense that America, at least in terms of its love affair with sports, they were ready to resume.
It wasn't quite yet business as usual, but it was back to the business of racing for NASCAR's elite division. This is a time when Americans all over this country pull together, and NASCAR is no different.
It was in our country's best interest and in race fans' best interest to go racing. We would provide a diversion, something else to watch.
Everybody wanted to show their support, like, to hell with you terrorists, you know, we're going to continue on. It was a way that we could stand up and show that we weren't going to back down from terrorism.
Today, as the race begins in a world full of confusion and certainly frustration, we offer you a dose of fun. Because, folks, that's our job. The atmosphere is unbelievable.
There was a lot of emotion and a real sense of everybody kind of coming together. It's events like that that really bring all that patriotism to the surface. And during the national anthem, it just gave you chills.
saying, USA, USA.
We're a very strong group, especially when we come together, and then we're not going to let something like this tear us down. It's only going to help us be stronger.
The message has been sent to New York City, to Somerset County, Pennsylvania, and to Arlington, Virginia. We mourn your loss. We salute your heroes. We will race, but we will never forget.
Let's go racing at Dover. Dale Earnhardt Jr., new leader.
The race starts, and we had a great car.
He is driving away from all of his competitors.
Fans on their feet, white flag is out. This season started very slowly for Dale Earnhardt Jr., but in the second half of the year, things have begun to come around. The American and checkered flags out at Dover. Earnhardt Jr. wins.
Hey, where's that big American flag at?
And he stuck it in there, and I was like, dang, this is a really big flag. I hope I can hold on to this thing, because it's not supposed to touch the ground, right? And so I've jammed it down in there somehow, and I'm hanging on this thing, and I'm driving around the track trying not to go too fast to get it yanked out of my hand.
To be able to throw that American flag in that car and ride around that racetrack, and with all these fans jumping up and down, what an incredible feat.
It doesn't get much better than this. And Earnhardt carrying an American flag around the racetrack.
Great emotional, patriotic day that made you so proud to be part of this history, but also be an American.
You know, it feels good to be back in the race car, and I'm glad I could be the guy to win the race, so I could carry the American flag around there, and that made me feel good.
For him to win that comeback race in Dover, to get our feet back under ourselves after 9/11, I marvel at the load that Dale Jr. carried.
The victory and celebration were fitting contributions to the healing process. 2 weeks later, the country's military response coincided with the start of the race at Charlotte.
Right now, there's breaking news developing, so we're going to go to NBC News in New York and get an update on what's happening.
American-led military attacks against targets throughout Afghanistan continue tonight.
These carefully targeted actions are designed to disrupt the use of Afghanistan as a terrorist base of operations.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're just slightly delayed in the race because there is live coverage of our troops and what's going on overseas.
The whole sport, particularly the grandstand, erupts in cheers. That was a proud moment that said, by golly, we're gonna right this wrong.
There was a lot of energy of, this is my country. I'm not gonna let this just go by. Something's happening. We're gonna get these guys.
9/11 pushed Americans into a frightening new era. Afghanistan was the first step towards securing the nation. The death of Dale Earnhardt solidified NASCAR's own march towards safety. On October 17th, the sport decided it was time to make a definitive change.
NASCAR made an announcement this afternoon, and it's a big one. Head and neck restraints are mandatory, effective immediately.
We chose to mandate the use of it. The decision was made after authenticating the benefits and being sure that the pluses way outweighed any minuses that might could happen.
I'm claustrophobic, so I was one that really fought hard against it, but I mean, I'm glad NASCAR pushed back and made me wear it.
It became a situation where NASCAR saw it was like an easy answer to mandate those products, and it was going to save your butt in a wreck.
The most lasting impact of that year, the fact that the Hans device took over and there hasn't been a death on a NASCAR track since 2001.
By November 2001, the war in Afghanistan and the search for those responsible for 9/11 were still in their early stages. NASCAR's campaign was coming to a close. Jeff Gordon had kept his opponents at arm's length since the chaos of September, winning at Kansas and scoring 5 top 10s. And in Atlanta, Gordon was on pace to clinch another championship.
Next time he crosses the start-finish line, Jeff Gordon is the 2001 NASCAR Winston Cup Series champion.
4 times he has won the championship. And he's, what, 30 years old? My goodness.
Bobby Labonte wins the race, and Jeff Gordon has locked up the championship.
Congratulations, Jeff. That was an awesome run there. Good job, man. Way to go all year. Great job.
It was an exciting time in my life.
This is all right. Got to enjoy every moment of this, right?
To be able to have won the championship, my 4th championship, it was a big deal. It was a big deal to me.
That era for Jeff Gordon was one that wrote the script for NASCAR's future. He was the guy to beat every weekend. He was on his game, and that's what sports is about. He was the franchise at the time.
In an era when the championship was decided on total points, Gordon earned the title even though there was still one event left. The New Hampshire race, postponed in the wake of 9/11 and held the day after Thanksgiving.
What I remember as much as anything is nobody complained. Nobody complained that they were spending Thanksgiving in a hotel room or in a city that they weren't used to, with people they weren't used to spending time with or whatever. Nobody complained because we all knew the reason why it had been kicked to that point.
Jeff Gordon dominated, but it's Robbie Gordon who's going to score the victory. 5th first-time winner in Winston Cup competition this year.
Thank you guys, all of you. Robbie, you done a hell of a job.
It was an unusual ending to the 2001 season, but when we left there was a lot of pride in the fact that we got through the year.
Robbie Gordon became the season's 19th different winner, the most in NASCAR's modern era. He won for owner Richard Childress. Ending the season in victory lane eased the pain of beginning it with the loss of Dale Earnhardt.
Even the win today, nothing will ever fill the void that's still there. It'll always be there in our hearts. But today, these are the things that help keep us going and keep us coming back to the next races.
So the season has ended. It's officially over. Let the celebration continue. Not the championship celebration. I'm talking about the celebration of living, the celebration of sport. After all, sport is the part of living that allows us to put our worries on pause so we can go play. Of course, living is the part of sport that makes us worry about how we're playing. Unfortunately, this season, those lines crossed. We continue to celebrate the victories, and that's okay, because joy and excitement are still a big part of living. But this year, we remember the losses as well as the wins. Congratulations to the drivers and the teams who provided all the fun when there was so much to worry about.
Every NASCAR season ends with an awards banquet, but that year, there was more to honor and reflect upon than just racing.
We turned the banquet into an opportunity for all of us to pay tribute in the proper areas that we were able to pay tribute to.
But while it was a great year for us and our team, it was a very tough year for our sport and our country. For NASCAR, the year started with the huge loss of Dale. Of course, everyone was affected by September 11th. We'll never forget those who were lost that day and their bravery, the New York police and fire departments. Thanks, guys, for being here, and thanks for what you do for us.
All those things in that year, I'd say is probably the most important year in the history of racing.
When you look at so many things that happened and that moved and shuffled and changed that year, it was like there was a shift in how people saw the world.
To get through the emotional side of it was really draining, but there was just such a proud group of people that wanted to prove that they were going to get it done and they were going to stick together. We didn't really close the book. We left it open and got ready for the next season.